Hey there, in this tutorial we're making a detective game in Python. We'll have some simple dialogues, items, some people, and some rooms. We're not starting from the very bottom here. We don't need to reinvent the wheel, so I've got some functions and scripts here. They're all in the description. So I've got this delayed write script, and all it does is it's got some log and some input. So the log basically types it out really slowly, and the input waits for the player for a certain amount of time, and then it doesn't let you input anymore. So let's go to names here. It's got some simple names, not too many. We don't need to be overcomplicated here. You can make up your own names if you want to, but it's just some objects and some NPC names. So if we go back to main, I've got this NPC, I've got this delay.log. Let's see how this works when I press F5 to run it. Basically, it just slowly types out hello world. And that's because there's half a second in between every single letter. So let me just change this to 0.01, so that's super fast. It's noticeably cool because it's not typing it instantly, but it's also not super boring. And now let's go down here and let's make some instances of our NPCs and objects. So if we want to create a random NPC, we'll say random NPC equals NPC, and it will have a random name out of our names list. So I've already imported random, and I've already imported names. So all I have to do is say random.choice, so it'll choose a random one from the list. And then I have to pass in the list of names. So I'll say names dot, and I named the list NPC names. Right in here, NPC names, perfect. And now if I say delay.log, random npc.name, it's going to give me a totally random name out of that list. So let's press F5, and it's got phill in there. Perfect. Now I'm just going to create some simple lambdas here, and they'll just give us these random names super quick. And it's just going to equal a lambda, and a lambda is basically just a really simple function, and it'll say basically just this right here, random.choice names.npc names. And then I'll have another one, and I'll say random object name. And it'll equal a lambda. Instead of this though, it'll say dot object names. Now right here, I can just say random NPC name, and it'll give me a totally random NPC name. And now if I press F5, it'll also work with a random name, Emily. Now I'm just gonna uncomment these out just so we can see what they're for. We've got this player input, and we've got this delay.log. And we're just gonna basically wait for the player to input something. If they take too long, then we'll just stop them, and we'll say what their input was. So let's press F5, hello world, say hello please. I'm gonna be super rude and not say anything. And then it says blank was the input because I didn't input anything and it waited for 5 seconds. Then it said Alex, perfect. Now, maybe we wanna have some rooms that we can put our NPCs in. So let's say classroom, classroom, and we'll just have an initialization here, self, and maybe let's have our NPCs and our objects that are just in the room. And I'll just name this possessions just to be consistent with our other possessions thing here. Self.npcs, I'll just change this to an S here, equals NPCs, and self.possessions equals possessions. Perfect. So maybe we want to have a generate room function. Let's make our own little place here. We'll call it functions just to be organized, and let's say def create room. Now we'll just have the name of the room, and it will just be apartment by default. I don't think we'll need to have too many rooms here, maybe like 2 or 3, and it'll just have an amount of NPCs and objects. NPC amount equals, let's say 3, possession amount equals 5. And in order to actually create these possessions and these NPCs, we need to have other functions that return NPCs and possessions. So let's make one, and let's call it create NPC, and we don't want to have a name or anything like that. We just want to have their possessions and their role. And the role will be bystander by default. But we also want to have, of course, the innocent, the perpetrator, the victim, right? So we want to have two other rules that we might create later on. So now we'll say new NPC equals NPC. I'm just going to capitalize this here just to be consistent. And this NPC will have random NPC name. They will have a role, which will be the role that we put here, and then possessions. And I put possessions in the beginning here because when we're creating a new random NPC, possessions is probably the only thing we really might want to have control over, so we can give like specific clues. Now, if we just return this new NPC, then we've got everything we need. Now in this room, we can say for NPC in NPC amount, and we got to say range of NPC amount. We will create an NPC. And our possessions don't really matter. We can make these over here for possession in possession amount. Let's make this range as well. And I'm just going to pass that for now, and let's create a new function called create possession. We don't really need to pass anything into this. We can just have it like this and say new possession equals object, and the object will have a name, which will just be a random object name. And then it will have a description, which we don't need to worry about right now. That's a little bit more complicated. And then down here, we can say the possession is equal to create possession. Now we should have a possession list. So NPC list will be here. And it'll just equal to blank by default. And then we'll have a possession list. And that'll equal blank by default as well. So let's say possession list dot append, and we'll just append this create possession. But in order to be a little bit more organized, we should say this is new possession. And then we'll append this new possession. And now in this NPC, we can take random possessions out of our possession list if we want. Random possession equals random.choice out of this possession list. So it's just going to take one of these random possessions in here and take it out. And now let's say possession list dot remove random possession, so that nobody else is going to have this same exact object as this NPC right here. And then we'll say create NPC, and in our possessions here, we will add in this random possession. So we're removing this from the main list and adding it to the NPCs list. Awesome. And now that we have all of this stuff here, we can finally say new room is equal to, and we have our room object here, and it takes in NPCs and possessions. So new room is going to equal NPC list. And of course, we need to actually say room here. And so it's going to take in our NPC list and then our possession list. And that will be everything we need in our new room. So let's return this, return new room. And let's say new room equals create room. And let's go all the way back up here, and in the room, let's have a name for it. So we're allowed to have apartments here. Well, actually, let's put the name at the very end, because by default, it can just equal apartment. Self.name is going to equal to name. So let's go back all the way here and say it's going to equal the name that we have put in our name up here. And one last thing, just so it's nice and easy for us programmers, is let's make a new function. Let's call it log. And we're going to log ourselves, and it's just going to be in the room so that we can log all of our NPCs, what they have, and the name. So let's say delay.log, and we can make a new f string, and it'll be self.name has self.npcs. And we're actually going to want all of these NPCs to print their own names here. So let's make a new function in NPCs and call that log. And all it's going to return an f string with a new line, self.name, new line, and then it's going to say all of its possessions. And down here in object, we should also make our own log function. And all it's going to return is the same thing, just self.name. And we'll just want to say log here. Or actually, instead of putting it like this, because this is going to cause some errors here, let's say self.name and then for I in self.possessions, or I mean for possession in self.possessions, we'll make an f string and it'll just be /n possession dot log, and that'll return this. And let's make sure that this is all adding into one string. So string equals, and it'll equal a blank string, and then string will plus equal this, and then string will plus equal this, and then we'll just return our string. And Python might throw some errors here because string is a default name. So instead we'll replace string with log. And the reason why this won't throw an error is because we actually would have to say self.log in order to call this. So in here, delay.log our self.name and our self.npcs, instead what we should do is we should say has, and then we can for npc in self.npcs, and then we can log all of our NPCs here. And then this log will pass in this log, and it all is one big happy cycle. And so let's go all the way back to the bottom here, and in our new room equals create room, now we can say new room.log. Oh, and of course make sure to say return new possession here. We have to say our new NPCs here, and then iterate over that and add it to our list. Just like we did for this possession list here, we'll say NPC list. We'll add in this new NPC. So NPC list.append, new NPC. And in this NPC here, we need to make sure that this possessions is a list, because otherwise it can't iterate over it. Now that we've got all that sorted out, let's press F5. It'll say hello please, I'm not going to. It'll have an apartment, it'll have Bill, it'll have Mark, and it'll have Bob. They all have their own objects, and the apartment has all of these people in it. Very cool. Of course, the apartment has its own objects that are just laying around. So let's go up to this log here and make it print that too. So for object in self.object or self.possessions, delay log object.log. Let's press F5. Gotta say hello please. I'm actually going to delete that just because it's annoying. We don't need any of this anymore. Let's try that again. Perfect. So it's got lipstick and a phone laying around, and it's got 2 boxes and a stone. Now, of course, we're not just going to print it like that. Instead, we're going to have a player moving around and able to look at things and inspect things. I hope you found this a little bit useful, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.